Did you know today's readings were done exactly 3 years ago today, and 3 years before that, and 3 years before that for the past 2,000 years? And that the priest or deacon does a homily to explain this. That's right. So every 3 years, the exact same readings have been done in the Catholic Church for the past 2,000 years since Jesus established the Catholic Church and the first Pope in Matthew 16:16 to 19. So for the past 2,000 years, every 3 years, the same readings are done. So during the week, Monday through Saturday, three readings are done. There's a New Testament reading, a Psalm reading from the Old Testament, and a Gospel reading from the New Testament. So that's Monday through Saturday. And then for the Sabbath, on the Saturday Vigil or Saturday Night Mass and the Sunday Mass, we do four readings. So every 3 years, those four readings are done together. And that is an Old Testament reading, an Old Testament Psalm reading, a New Testament reading, and a New Testament Gospel reading. So every Sunday, all four of those readings are done together every 3 years for the past 2,000 years. So every 3 years, Catholics have read through the entire Bible in 3 years. We've read through the entire Bible. So every 3 years we read through the entire Bible. So starting 2,000 years ago, the readings that we did today were done together. Okay, and that's happened every 3 years. And the priest or deacon does something called a homily instead of a sermon to explain them. So the difference between a homily and a sermon, and it used to be called a sermon, they only changed it since I think the Second Vatican Council, and they changed the name from sermon to homily. The difference between a homily and a sermon is that a homily does two things different than a sermon. It explains why those 3 or 4 readings were done together for the past 2,000 years. So it explains why they are related and why the Catholic Church wants those readings done together every 3 years for 2,000 years. It also explains why those Bible readings still apply to the current day. So today's readings, the priest explains why those readings were done together and why they are still applicable today. 3 years ago, he did the exact same thing. He explained why today's readings done 3 years ago are still applicable to today's society 3 years ago. And 3 years before that, and 3 years before that. As you know, times change, culture changes, but the Catholic Church never changes. And that is the priest's job, is to explain in the homily why for 2,000 years the Catholic Church has placed those 3 or 4 readings together, and why those readings still apply to today, why the living word is the living word and it applies for eternity. So what was a sin 2,000 years ago is still a sin today. The Catholic Church does not change with the times, and our Mass readings and homilies explain why the Church is always relevant and the Church will always be here. I'll quickly talk about Matthew 16:16 to 19, which I'll do another talk on that more thoroughly. But in those verses, Jesus establishes the church and the first pope by declaring Peter the rock, and on this rock he would build his church, only one church. And since then, the same readings have been done together, the same Mass has been done together. So we have been doing the exact same thing, the Catholic Church, for 2,000 years. And in Matthew 16:16 to 19, Jesus said he is building his church upon Peter the rock, and on this rock, the church will never, the gates of hell will never prevail against it, which means we will always have the Catholic Church, and we will always have a pope, and the pope will always bind things on earth as is bound in heaven per Jesus's orders. And we will talk about those commands and talk about Jesus establishing the first pope and the Catholic Church in a later video. Thank you.